Hello, everybody. Lovely to see so many of you. I hope you all had fun last night and enjoyed the party. We heard it going. It sounded like a lot of fun. Did you partake, Mark?
I didn't, but it sounded pretty late.
It did. It sounded, yeah,
hopefully everyone had a great time.
Good stuff. We've only got 20 minutes, so we're going to dive straight into it and make sure that we get all the information from Mark that you guys are looking for. Mark obviously looks after distribution and networks for EMEA, for Sony in EMEA. Huge remit, lots of interesting countries under that remit.
Lots of fun.
Exactly. We've got a sizzle to kick off with so you guys can see what we're talking about. So if we play the sizzle and then Mark can talk us through some of the shows. So let's play the video, please.
G'day, new arrivals. Start of our new line.
We came here for our family, for our future, the future we chose together.
This country is lost without its king.
Someone must bring Arthur home. Arthur has come.
I have to ask you a question.
Did you try to kill me?
Once upon a time, there was an outsider. He would do anything not to get his ass shot off.
You have 10 days to pick up the package. Can you handle that?
I can handle that. What? Okay. Oh, boy. Here we go.
There we go, a round of applause, I think, for that one. So, as we can see, lots of shows, really interesting stuff. Just run us through some of the titles, if you can, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what the shows are about and what you're...
Of course. Thanks, Richard. Well, look, we're just back from the Los Angeles screenings, which is a huge, huge event for us and the industry. It's important, of course, to acknowledge the writer's strike that's happening at the moment, and lots of negotiations happening there. I'm not any part of those at all. It's not in my remit, but obviously we're all hoping that resolves quickly and fairly, and everyone can get on with doing the great jobs that they're doing. But for us at the LA screenings, we had 4 shows that we presented. It was a full day for our clients to come and join us. The first show that we presented was Twisted Metal, which is based on PlayStation IP. I'll talk a little later about the PlayStation strategy that we've got. But Twisted Metal is 10 episodes. We're producing it for Peacock. It's a half-hour comedy. It's an absolute blast, crazy, zany, very promotable, and we've had a huge amount of interest in that one already. We've had offers flying in before I even got off the plane home, so that's really exciting. We had a show called Killing Kind, which is 6 episodes being produced for Paramount Plus in the UK, but we hold international distribution rights on that show. Based on a book, as I said, 6 episodes, and it's a thriller. It's a story of a female barrister, and one of the cases that she's looking after, the person she's looking after starts to stalk her, and it becomes a real cat and mouse thriller of is he good, is he bad? So that one's really gripping, and so that's exciting. We have £10 Poms, which we produced for the BBC. That's a 10-parter as well, and it's set on an immigration story. £10 Poms was a phenomenon after the Second World War, 1950s. Poms is a slang nickname that Australians have for Brits, in case you didn't know. And after the Second World War, Brits could take a boat to Australia for £10 and emigrate. So it became a phenomenon, and £10 Poms became a thing. But it's an immigration story. It's very soapy. It's done an incredible job for the BBC. 7 million viewers for the first episode, and the audience is really enjoying that one. And again, we've got international distribution rights on that, so that's a good one. And then lastly, certainly not least, The Winter King, which has been produced for MGM Plus in the US and ITVX in the UK. And this is a 5th century tale, King Arthur story, very epic, wonderful scenery, big battle scenes. And I think really in a world of Game of Thrones, Vikings, House of Dragons, this really is a fantastic retelling of the King Arthur story. So those are the episodes we presented at the LA screenings. Fantastic feedback from everybody. The clients had a good time, and we're now fully into our sales process with all our clients.
Good stuff. So yeah, that's the take from LA. And I mean, obviously, let's briefly talk about LA for some of the buyers out there and the people who weren't actually there. What was the feeling? Because obviously, really interesting time in LA at the moment. We've got the writer's strike going on, but also lots of content coming out. What was the sort of feeling among buyers and studios as well?
Well, it's interesting, Richard. I mean, our strategy, 5 or 6 years ago, we set out to not participate in the kind of streaming wars, as they've been dubbed, in the same way the others did. We decided not to launch a general entertainment SVOD service, which for us has worked out incredibly well. Obviously, there's a lot of competition in the streaming space. It's well publicized, some of the challenges and things that are going on there. But we're an independent studio, and whatever we're producing, we want to partner with people, whether it's at commissioning stage or whether it's through acquisition. So everything that we showed at the LA screenings is available, either if we've got partners that have an output arrangement with us, or just a spot selling market by market. So, the reaction to the shows was great. It's always good when you've got a hot year. So we're very, very happy with where we are. I mean, from other buyers that I've spoken to about their experiences at other studios, I think they saw content. I don't know what's available and what they'll put on their own services. That's for them to figure out. That's not my remit at all. But I think, those other studios are assessing whether they want the distribution revenue. Yeah. They knew what they used to have. They knew what they could have, versus the need to maintain and acquire new subscribers for their streaming services. So there's quite a dilemma going on there, I think. But certainly for us, we're very happy with our strategy of producing as much high-quality content as we can, and then working with our partners to service it to their customers. Yeah,
I mean, fast evolving market. Obviously, in this region, it's lots of different countries, everyone after different things. Sometimes CE gets sort of lumped together as one region, but it's not. It's very disparate, lots of different tastes. For you guys as Sony, tell us about the opportunities. I mean, obviously, you can buy the tape, or you can buy, certain rights from a window point of view. You were just saying earlier, you've got multiple pay windows, for example. Still quite a pay-heavy market in lots of this region. Talk us through some of the options that people have available and sort of what that says about the region itself.
No, of course. I mean, we've structured our business and our team on a territory-by-territory basis. So we have folks in a lot of the major cities around Europe, Middle East, and Africa. What's fascinating, really, is just the amount of services and platforms there are, and the competition between them, of course, for viewers' eyeballs and subscription money. But really, we look at it on a piece of content by piece of content basis. We've got some very long-standing relationships. We just renewed our Pay One output deal with HBO in Central Europe, so we're very pleased and excited to continue that relationship. And that provides a lot of all of our Pay One movies from the studio, and then there's some TV series and catalogue that flow through that deal. But that's one window. We're working with as many people as we can. We have such a broad array and selection of content, whether it's movies or TV shows or soaps or local production. Our ambition really is to partner with people and just build those relationships and grow from there, really.
And we've got the shows coming out of the US. Obviously, we've seen quite a few of them just there on the screen now. But you've also got, we've got other shows, £10 Poms, for example, which is BBC co-production. Essentially, talk us through your co-pro model, and perhaps for some of the guys here, sort of how buyers here, commissioners here can get involved with that, if that's of interest.
Of course. But I think, some years ago, obviously we have our output from the domestic studio in the US, and they're working with the commissioning partners to produce the shows. But of course, great stories can come from anywhere, as Frank Spotnitz was rightly saying yesterday. And so we have really expanded our production capabilities. We've acquired production companies around the world. We've got some big operations in the UK with Left Bank and Bad Wolf. We've got a company in Australia called Curio, who are producing some fantastic Australian content. We've got operations in Africa, where we're starting to develop there. We've actually got a show coming out soon that we're producing for Netflix in Africa called Classified, which is a kind of espionage story with a high school kid. We've got big production facilities in Latin America. And as much as our US fare is important, our international fare is really, really important too, because, as I say, great stories can come from anywhere. So we're really expanding that. Yeah. And again, with the network of salespeople we've got around the world, working in the local market, we are understanding the local nuances and tastes and working out which of our products is appropriate for the local audiences. But you mentioned co-production. Again, that's something that we're really, really interested in. And I touched on it earlier in terms of partnership.
Yeah.
Again, as an independent studio, partnership is so important to us. There's so many clients around the world that we just want to grow and build with. We've got fantastic IP. And in a world where there's hundreds of new TV shows every year, it's so important to have IP, to have a brand that can really cut through in such a complicated market. So, for example, you might remember the movie Gattaca from some years ago. Really successful movie. We're actually producing a TV series of Gattaca. Showtime are on board as a commissioning broadcaster in the US, but again, Sony will hold the international distribution rights to that. It's a very, very expensive production. Really expensive, but we are looking to get on board with some co-pro partners for Gattaca. And the opportunity there for international partners is to get in early, to attach to what is going to be a very big piece of IP, to be part of the press releases, to be part of the production process.
Yeah.
And then to secure the rights that you need, and for a long license period as well, and to really be part of the fundamental creation of a piece of IP like that for TV. And that's one example. We've got a number of really strong scripts, again, from around the world that we're looking to work with partners on.
And in terms of, we saw, we've seen sort of a trend away from sort of global rights deals. We've seen Netflix and those guys perhaps move away from that type of deal, being a little bit more nuanced in how they're operating. How do you see sort of that developing? Do you think that's going to keep going? And what does that mean for Sony on one side and then buyers in this region, for example, on the other? Is that more opportunity or more challenge for you having to find budgets?
For us, we are producing, at source with the streamers.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We have The Crown with Netflix, which is obviously hugely successful. Or Last of Us, we produced with HBO, again based on PlayStation IP. So we're producing, at that global scale. But then there's a huge amount of content, like the shows we just touched on from the LA screenings, that are available territory by territory, and the rights packages, on a case-by-case basis, depending what our client needs, depending on our distribution strategy, market by market, we can make the rights available. But I think, in terms of the rights, we know what our customers want, we know what they need, we know what their customers want in terms of the utility. So we're really trying to lean into the rights that people need to make sure that the deals that we're doing work for them and obviously work for us with our onward distribution strategies. So I guess really long-winded answer of saying, we're working with the streamers on a global level, but we're working in so many different ways with our local partners in each territory.
Good stuff. We've only got 6 minutes left already, so I'm going to rattle through a few more questions. Let's talk about PlayStation and your new relationship, because that's a fascinating one. We've seen, The Last of Us probably is the breakout hit, I think it's fair to say, of video game adaptations. We've seen them before, never quite so successful.
Yeah.
You really cracked it with that one, so congrats. What's the trajectory for that? Are we going to see? We've got a few more a lot more in the works. How do you see it sort of developing from a PlayStation point of view, and your involvement with that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's such a fascinating opportunity for Sony from a corporate standpoint. There's been a huge amount of work with pictures and PlayStation. I'll talk about that in a second. But the other things that are going on really within the Sony companies is how Sony Pictures and Sony Music work together. There's huge talent, huge roster of artists, huge catalogue of music rights. So we're exploring how we can work more closely with the groups with that. Electronics, obviously huge technology. And again, that's playing in lots of ways for us as a studio. But PlayStation is such a phenomenon. The devices have evolved, and PlayStation 5 is a fantastic piece of kit. And there's just amazing IP with the games. Yeah. Massive fan base. PlayStation Plus, which is the subscription model for gamers through the PlayStation, has huge amounts of subscribers, tens and tens, if not hundreds of millions of subscribers.
And engaged subscribers.
Very engaged, using the device a lot. So there's a real, attached audience to the IP. And really for us, it's been developing for a long time, but the Uncharted movie that we had a couple of years ago with Tom Holland was a huge success, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. And we've greenlit another one of those because it did so well. Last of Us, you mentioned, been a phenomenal success for HBO, really broke out and broke some records. And then we mentioned Twisted Metal, which, really is the next one for us in the TV space. And then in the feature film space, we've got Gran Turismo, which again is based on PlayStation IP, a very successful driving game. The movie launches in the next month or so. And actually was shot at the Hungaroring in Budapest. So some local relevance there. But it stars Orlando Bloom, and it's based on a true story, actually, of a kid that was just a genius Gran Turismo, PlayStation driver, but he got a chance to test drive for Nissan in a real car and just had exactly the same talent in the real world. And he went on and competed in Le Mans, and the movie's based on that wonderful story. So, we're really excited for that. But there's a lot more to come. We've got a huge amount of PlayStation IP in development. But I think, Richard, the interesting thing we've learned is as much as you've got a built-in audience from PlayStation gamers, if you don't know the IP and you aren't a gamer, the IP needs to stand on its own. It needs to be brilliant television. It needs to be a brilliant movie without having that built-in audience. So it needs to work for both those that know it and don't.
Yeah, and in terms, that sort of cutting through, getting IP, you guys, you've got some of the biggest shows in the world at the moment. Cutting through seems to be increasingly tricky at the moment. How do you kind of go? How do you approach that in terms of for broadcasters and streamers in this region? Picking up shows that can cut through the noise. How do you kind of negotiate that problem?
Yeah, well, it's a deep question, that one. But
got 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. Well, so look, I think again, us being independent and not making things for a streaming service of our own, what we produce, what we create, has to be great. It has to start there. We have to have the best writers and talent, both in front of the camera and behind. We have to have a really sophisticated, ambitious, nimble distribution team. And I used the words earlier, but it really comes back to partnership. If we've got great IP and our initial commissioners are going to do a brilliant job launching it, when we're then working with our partners internationally, as much as we want to find the right deal and the right utility and get everything set up properly, one of the things that we're very focused on at Sony is then activating the product with our clients once we've done the deals and figured out the terms. So I would hope that our clients in the room would acknowledge, we've got a very strong and sophisticated marketing team that are really leaning into the product with our partners, providing the best assets quickly, early, and trying to make sure that we match the level of support and noise that is being created in the commissioning market internationally. Because again, you get that wonderful circle of if we do a great job on that, then the next movie hopefully will be a success as well. So that partnership is critical with our clients.
Yeah, and a virtuous circle almost, I guess. And let's close on a bit of a crystal ball gazer in terms of sort of what's going to be the topic of conversation. Let's look 12 months, 36 months in advance. Right. When we all come back to NEM, we all enjoy that wonderful view. At the moment, we're talking about the writers' strike and perhaps shortages out of LA and the importance of local productions. What's going to be the top and streamer mergers? Who knows? Perhaps. What do you reckon will be the big topics in sort of 12, 24 months' time? Yeah,
I guess we can all speculate about streamer mergers. We'll see what happens. They all need to figure out how they're going to get scale, but beyond the hundreds of millions they've got, of subscribers. There's big numbers in front of them they need to achieve, so I'm not going to speculate on that. But look, I think conferences like NEM are really, really important for everybody. We've lived through this awful time with the pandemic and work from home and all those sorts of things. So to be together and to connect is so important. You could really feel it yesterday and at the drinks last night. Just people are excited to see each other, excited to work together. And the landscape's so complicated. There's so many things going on within the industry, and it's moving so fast and changing that, it is such a people industry. And I think that's fundamental. And whether it's 12 months or 10 years, I think that's ever important. And again, for us to be partners because we're independent is critical. So I think I've used that word about 10 times now, but that's really important. There's your partner here. Well, Mark, we're out of time. So please put your hands together. Mark Young, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. That was really good. Thanks very much.